this show, currently only has 5 matches. 5 matches with a 6 o'clock start. First hour is going to be on ESPN. Now, this show should end before the UFC card at 9 o'clock. So we're looking at potentially a 6 to 9 window for broadcast here. That means only really 2 hours on ESPN Plus itself, Unlimited. Sorry, whatever, ESPN Unlimited itself, potentially. So we shall see about that. And on the card, we've got Io Sky versus Asuka. Let's talk about that one first. Any thoughts on this match? Your thoughts on the build so far, and who you think will be winning this one?
I think the absence of Kyrie has sort of hurt this a tiny bit, but for the most part, it's been very compelling. I really enjoyed the confrontation. Of course, it ended in the misting, but I really enjoyed the sit-down confrontation between the two. I like the fact that they've been allowed to really lean into their own identity and yell at each other in Japanese and then sort of slip the odd bit of English in there and the use of subtitles and all of that. I think it's great. These are both tremendous performers, so I think this could, as a wrestling match, steal the show. But yeah, I'm into this. As a prediction, I go with Io. I think just a win over Asuka puts a bow on the feud, unless they want to keep it going.
Yeah, this is a match that I think had the potential to be like maybe one of the better WrestleMania builds this far. But I mean, it sort of kind of felt like a leftover that was hot maybe towards the end of last year, but cooled down significantly without much focus throughout the course of WrestleMania season. So not only have they sort of like reheated it in the microwave, they've also they forgot to put the cover on, and so it's sort of exploded, and you've kind of left portions of the meal in the microwave as you're just kind of eating it. And that's kind of what it felt like with the absence of Kyrie in this particular feud. They've kind of like clawed together something that I think, ultimately is fine. There's some history back there, but it's not these sort of like deep stakes that you feel, this should have resulted in, with like the freeing of Kyrie Sane from Asuka's grasp, for instance. It's missing that entirely.
That emotional hook into that had been going on for so long has been taken out of it. So
the story's kind of dead. So what you're really left with is like some backstory between the two, but what you're really looking forward to is a quality match between the two of them on pay-per-view, which we always, have been able to rely on. So I'm still looking forward to it, again, just based on the in-ring quality. I wonder if there will at least be a shout out to Kyrie Sane in the form of like an insane elbow from Io Sky or something. I think that would be nice.
I think so too. Yeah, and I wouldn't rule that out at all.
But I'm predicting an Io win. I think being left off of like Mania, maybe it doesn't mean that much, but I do think it takes a little bit of the luster off of Io Sky. I think it announces to the world that, hey, she's not as big of a star as you might be believing, and therefore I think she needs like some big spotlight moment like this, like a win over Asuka. So I'd like to see. I mean, the feud's probably over after this, right?
I think so.
I think so too. Then we've got Danhausen and a mystery partner taking on Kit Wilson and The Miz. Of course, we got Danhausen and his mystery cloning machine. Who will be popping out to join Danhausen tomorrow?
Yeah, as I say, I think it's most likely to be either Punk. That would be obviously a great crowd pleaser, and these two have history. But I don't know that they've established that they have history on the show. I think Jelly Roll, frankly, is a more realistic prospect, and he at least has some sort of beef history with both The Miz and Kit Wilson, particularly Kit. He had a match with Kit Wilson, in fact. So I think that's a possibility. I don't think we're going to get some sort of weird cosplay clone, which you might be led to believe from tonight's edition of SmackDown with the machine and all of that. I think it's likely to be a celebrity or CM Punk.
Yeah, I wonder if there's still so much like celebrity fatigue going on that like a jelly roll, which I think would make perfect sense in the context of the feud. I
Yeah.
wonder if that would be more met with disappointment. I mean, in front of like a Backlash Tampa crowd, probably not vocal disappointment, but still online. I wonder. I feel like that might be a bit of a negative reaction more so than a genuine surprise. I think Punk to me is a very good sort of like surprise. Like because of the lack of Danhausen interactions on screen, that would be somebody that you would expect would not be predicted by most of the audience. So to see him come out maybe in the Danhausen face paint, I think would offer like a pretty fun pay-per-view only thing, right? Not to say I even expect any sort of continuation with like a Punk versus Miz and Kit Wilson thing, but
No.
I also think it would be like a fun one night only like helping out of from a friend. Trying to think if there are any other candidates that would be satisfying.
It would be Punk would be a giant crowd pleasing moment. I think you are always, when you have the mystery partner, raising expectations. So, like if Mr. Iguana comes out, if Joe Hendry comes out, that's going to be a balloon, deflating moment. So
Maybe yeah, I'm trying to think. Like who any other sort of like I don't know, ghoulish like guys.
is there anyone spooky on NXT at the moment? I don't think anyone who wouldn't just get crickets, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't think nothing would work. I don't think any of those would work. I'm predicting Punk, but honestly, it could be anybody out there. Shane McMahon.
Yeah, let's go. Shane O'Mac is back.
Okay. So are we predicting Danhausen and mystery partner win?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I am too. All right, maybe the people's main event of this particular show. We got Sami Zayn versus Trick Williams for the United States Championship. This is long been building up until WrestleMania, of course. Now we are approaching this match with a complete babyface Trick Williams and a completely heel Sami Zayn, although he probably wouldn't say that if you asked him. But they have certainly deepened, I would say, the rivalry over the past 3 weeks here in maybe a very meaningful way with this ridiculous gingerbread man thing that has received reaction online and also on this podcast itself. But your thoughts on the match itself and your prediction?
I'm going to go with a win for Sami Zayn, and I think that's for this reason. Like, if Trick just retains, beats Sami, then it feels like all of what we've been going through for all of these weeks is sort of a tin lid has been put on it, and Sami's sort of left. It's on to the next thing, but in a diminished sense. And I don't think that creatively that's where they're pushing Sami at the moment, because we've had the hints with Cody again as recently as last week, the interaction that they had, that Cody acknowledging that he's one of the best to ever do it. So I think Sami really fully embracing the heel turn and the heel tactics to win is the better story to come out of this. And then perhaps down the road, if Cody does lose his title, we get some sort of interaction between those two, or this continues as a program. But I think it really does damage to Sami Zayn if you just have Trick with a decisive win. So that's that's not where the money would be, I think, but that's what I'm predicting.
Interesting. Now, at the same time, I feel like people would argue that it would damage Trick Williams to have such a brief reign without any successful title defenses against Sami. And maybe many would argue Trick is the bigger project than Sami Zayn. He's your future WrestleMania main eventer, where Sami he is a former WrestleMania main eventer, but, Trick could be a night 2 main eventer.
Yeah, I mean, and it's an argument I absolutely accept, but I think it depends on how it's done. We also know that Kevin Owens has been training, so I don't want to get too ahead of my skis, but perhaps some help would be an interesting thought.
Interesting, yeah. I think I'm predicting a Trick Williams retention here. I just see maybe like them wanting to explore more championship matches with him on the bill. Carmelo is still a name that's out there. And Sammy, I feel like the same argument still stands where like he can still tell his stories in the loss. Does it damage him? I mean, I would suggest this entire month, being a part of this gingerbread storyline, may have already like tempted that. And I think he's always somebody who could still get over, despite whatever they might throw at him. So I'm predicting a trick win, but I think you bring up some great points, Neil. We go up next to Braun Breaker versus Seth Rollins, a match that maybe was at one point initially designed for WrestleMania here. We're getting it finally at Backlash Tampa. Your thoughts on the build and also the match?
Yeah, we're getting the payoff sort of 6 months after the initial betrayal. So I think it's pretty clear this was originally supposed to happen at Mania. I mean, the build logic is solid. Rollins wants revenge. Breaker's trying to establish himself as as a top guy. Breaker's gotten the better of Rollins at every turn recently, so it's usually the setup for a babyface comeback, but very strong argument for Breaker needing the momentum more than Rollins does. And I think this is, am I right in thinking this has been established as occurring on the first hour simulcast on ESPN2?
I believe so. Mm-hmm.
I think that's right. So it's getting a pretty premium placement too. Rollins doesn't need the win, and I think he can recover from a loss. I think Breaker needs the sort of decisive PLE big stage singles victory to justify the push that he's been getting, especially coming back from injury. So that's where I see this one going. I think, in fact, it's possibly one of the more predictable results.
Yeah. I think Braun, and I'm trying to just like look up to see when Bronson Reed may be able to come back, whether or not he might play any sort of factor in a match like this. So don't really have any that much clarity on that. But I think they've done a good job of like ramping things back up, after both of them have been away for a while. Braun Breaker has really been kind of kept to, I think, very intense like beatdowns, and I think those have turned out well. His backstage sort of like talking moments, I feel have kind of taken the edge off of him a little bit. But I mean, there's also an appeal to that in like a Scott Steiner sense, which isn't the worst thing. But I think the match I'm looking forward to being like a really strong one. Both of them are incredible performers, and I'm very curious to see what a Seth Rollins can do with like the athlete, like a Braun Breaker. But I think Braun should win this one.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to our main event up next, and that is Roman Reigns versus Jacob Fatu for the World Heavyweight Championship. And I suppose Jacob Fatu's acknowledgement of the Tribal Chief. What do you think about this one?
It's the match with the 3-week build that has had the best and strongest build, I think. For Fatu confront Reigns the very next day after WrestleMania 42 on Raw to make clear he wanted the championship, and they've just gone from there. The elevation of the Tongan death grip as this almost banned moves kind of vibe to it. I really enjoyed the explanation that I think it was Cole gave us, that it targets the Adam's apple and the nerves around it, and causing it, making it difficult to breathe and all of that. So I think he's broken through on that. Fatu's been tremendous in his promos. Reigns has been great in all of his stuff as well. I just think the build has been very, very good. I'm interested to see who else gets involved in the match itself. And the fact that I'm not clear on that is always a good sign, I think. Royce Keys, as we've said, is lurking around there if Jacob needs help. So we'll see about the actual match and how it pans out. But I think it really has had the best build. I can't see any other end result, though, than Roman Reigns retaining. He's had the belt less than a month, and cutting that short would seem, almost impossible to me.
Yeah. I mean, Jacob Fatu, I think, is a wonderful candidate to do a shock title change for. I just don't see the time for that being now. I think, I mean, Roman as the tribal chief again, leading his own, at least like smaller version of the bloodline. I think it's so incredibly compelling still for me. Now I was initially really excited to see like what a Jacob Fatu being in the bloodline would mean, but the promise of Jacob Fatu burning down the family tree, I think, is that much more exciting. So I feel like there are ways to book this bench so that Roman wins, maybe by shenanigans, like thanks to the Usos or something like that, or some way that makes Jacob feel like he was slighted and that it was not fair, causing him to, despite losing, say, fuck this. I'm destroying all of you. And I'd love to see what that looks like, maybe with the help of Royce Keys. So at the same time, we could be telling a longer term story where like Jacob joins the fold, has to throw up the one and acknowledge Roman, only to maybe grow increasingly dissatisfied from within and break out. Although that would be kind of similar to how he exited the MFTs.
Yeah.
But do you see the feud continuing beyond this between these two, or will things settle with this one?
I think if you're in the creative team or at the top of it, like Levesque, and you've seen how good it's been over the past 3 weeks, you would be tempted to find a way to extend this. Which, of course, would take us... I'm just going through the next PLEs in my mind, so that would be Clash in Italy, wouldn't it?
Yep.
If they go through to the next cycle at the end of May, and then we seem to... All the reporting is that Roman is then taking time off in June. So, yeah, that's another possibility that they keep this going, and I wouldn't be against that because it's been one of the better things on WWE television lately.
Agreed. I could see a rematch, being built up coming off of this with a bigger stipulation attached to it. But for this particular match, I'm looking for a great performance from the both of them. I'm looking for maybe some live theater, sort of like a sports entertainment-y type of storytelling from Roman Reigns, but I'm looking for really great intensity from Jacob Fatu in his ability to maybe add great physicality to a Roman Reigns style that isn't necessarily known for physicality. So Roman's coming off of maybe one of the best matches he's ever had with CM Punk at WrestleMania in the main event. We'll see if Jacob Fatu can follow that up tomorrow. All right. So John and I will be back tomorrow, and I think we're suggesting maybe about 10:30 p.m. Eastern time over at youtube.com/postwrestling for our post show. Again, this show is supposed to end at about 9 o'clock, but you guys can catch up and watch a bit later, maybe watch a bit of the UFC. Join us live at 10:30, but for most of you, you'll probably be listening to the to our show afterwards on your Post Wrestling Cafe or free feeds.
If the Post Wrestling Cafe were to undergo a drug test in the month of May, we would be testing positive because we are overloaded with content. We are going to be reviewing Hulk Hogan, Real American, all 4 episodes this month. Plus, we will go inside the Manosphere with a review of the latest Louis Theroux documentary. We will also have coverage of the Ronda Rousey-Gina Carano fight, also taking place on Netflix. Rewind Away tackles WCW Super Brawl 2, and we cover NXT TakeOver Brooklyn from 2015. All that, plus all of the XL editions on a weekly basis, Collision Course, Daredevil Born Again, and so much more. It can all be yours at postwrestlingcafe.com. $8 gets you in the door.